afternoon. My name is Maria Njoroge, and this is the Kenya Diaspora Media, the Diaspora Spotlight. Today, I have a very interesting guest in studio. Her name is Janet Kamau, the CEO and Chief Consultant of Global Talent Pathways, New Zealand. I will allow her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she's doing in Kenya, because it's been 30 years?
25.
Oh, wow, that's a very long time to be away from home. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Janet Kamau, and I am a Kenyan who lives in New Zealand. I left Kenya about 25 years ago and relocated to New Zealand 21 years ago, where I have done studied and worked until last year when I started Global Talent Pathways New Zealand, an education agency that recruits students from Kenya to go and study in New Zealand.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet. So when you talk about an education agency, walk us through the journey of, Global Talent Pathways being born, because you've said it's been a whole 25 years since you left here. I think a lot has changed since you left Kenya.
A lot.
Okay.
It's a new world, actually. I feel very un-Kenyan. When I left Kenya, the president was Moi. So a lot has changed in the 25 years I've been away. I left as a student, so I have actually walked this journey as a student, leaving Kenya to go overseas to go and study. But Global Talent Pathways was actually born from COVID, being at home. I spent a whole year at home, and it was an opportunity to say, what else can I do with the skills that I've got and the experience that I've got to actually make things more accessible for students who want to come and study in New Zealand. I'd been employed at this point for the 25 years, as well as being a student, and it was an opportunity to actually be offered different, obviously, being an education agency, Kenya doesn't know anything about New Zealand, and New Zealand knows very little about Kenya. And so what I'm doing is I'm here to raise awareness that New Zealand has actually got opportunities for students.
Okay, so talking about opportunities, you've been in Kenya for the last 5 weeks doing a tour. Tell us a little bit about that, your experience, and maybe if there's someone who felt like they needed to know more about New Zealand and maybe Global Talent Pathways, talk to them. What do you have to say to them today?
I was traveling for about 4 weeks. I've done about 2,500 kilometers in 4 weeks, so definitely Tembea Kenya. It's been a classroom for me. As much as I had information to actually provide for people, it's just been eye-opening. I don't think I've interacted with Kenyans as I did before, because I come on holiday and I come for a funeral or I come for an event. So when I come, I'm spending a lot of the time with my family, and this time round, I have not spent any time with family. They're meeting me in venues like this to, catch up with me. The journey for the student, I got the opportunity to actually have formal sessions and informal sessions, lots of questions. Majority of the people I met, over 90% of the people I met, know nothing about New Zealand. So definitely was required to come and tell people that New Zealand is a country. It's got 5 million people. It's in the South Pacific. And we've got about 100,000 students, international students, at any given time. And Kenya doesn't actually feature in any way, shape or form. There was 37 students in 2023. I want to change that. I want to make sure that number changes, because the opportunities in New Zealand are endless. People were interested in trying to find opportunities more than they were interested in the country. I want to sell the country, because I believe that if you sell the country, then the people will come.
Okay, so talking about selling the country, talk to someone who is probably hearing about this for the first time. Top of your head, what is it about New Zealand that, made you stay or made you want to find other Kenyans to go there?
I lived in Australia before I went to New Zealand. So I'd spent 4 years in Australia, and when I went to New Zealand on a holiday, and the warmth of the people, that was it. I felt at home. I literally felt at home. other things that I love about New Zealand, it's one of the safest countries in the world. It's one of the least corrupt countries in the world. It's number one for transparency. I would like for Kenyans to come and see a world where there are more jobs than there are people to do them. I'd like for them to come to a place where life is so safe that your children can walk to school and walk themselves home from the age of 5. I'd like for people to be able to have access to world-class education for a relatively affordable amount of money, and the opportunities to stay and thrive in New Zealand are exceptionally high.
Okay, so thank you. About that, which towns did you visit in Kenya, and anything that stood out in terms of perception towards agents and education in general?
100%. I started in Nakuru, and then I went to Eldama Ravine. I went to Eldoret. I went to Kapsabet. I went to Bomet, Kericho, and then I went to Kakamega. I went to Mombasa. I came back to Nairobi, went to Nakuru, and then came back to Nairobi. So I've done well,
That's
a lot of yes. What stood out? There was Kakamega was probably the toughest crowd. They had a lot of questions. Kakamega and Eldoret probably were the ones that stand out for me. There was a lot of questions around why would I be doing what I'm doing and not charging any money. So that was I had to kind of pivot from that a little bit, where it's like, actually I work with universities that pay me to bring students in. So you don't have to worry about why I'm doing it. I'm not, well, obviously I care about community and I want to grow the Kenyan community in New Zealand. People were very, very curious about how I was making money, which is culturally, it's a really big deal because New Zealand is not like that. So as I said, I've been in a classroom for the last 5 weeks.
Okay, so that's interesting. Talking about the business model, have you noticed any differences between how Kenyans approach the whole having an agency to help with education and how you're doing it? And has that made your work easier, or is it becoming difficult to, get through to the people that you're trying to get to?
That's an interesting question. The main purpose of this visit was to grow awareness.
Okay.
And so the expectation was that I would walk away with people who knew a little bit more about New Zealand. I'm coming back in August, September.
Oh, nice.
And that will be a different emphasis. It wouldn't be the same as this time. Then it'll be actually consolidating the information. And so I have an opportunity between April and September to actually grow enough awareness so that people are making, informed decisions. I have found 2 groups of people who are ready to sign up and run, and then people who are hesitant. And this is what I say, I don't believe that you're selling mangoes. What you're doing is you're planting a seed. Some people will not be ready for another year. Some people have got kids who are in high school and want to find out information that is out there. Someone else is having to think, how do I actually fund this? So the schools are there, the people come to them. So there's no rush for people to actually make informed decisions at their own pace, right? Yeah.
That's talking about the opportunities that you have. You've said that you work with universities. How does that work? Do you get a list of courses?
So actually, we call them education providers because in New Zealand, you have universities, you have polytechs, and you've got something called PTEs, which is private training establishments that are individually owned by people or groups of people. And what I've done is I've gone through the skills shortage list and I've worked out courses that Kenyans can be able to access that are relatively short, so 1 to 2 years maximum. I've then approached schools that provide those courses for a reasonable amount of money. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to get a course that is giving you enough skills to be able to actually have a pathway to work and live in New Zealand, and then approach the schools, and the schools then work with me. I am the first, or maybe the second, Black African who's actually working with the universities. So Africa in general is a new market for them. So it has taken 2.5 years of actually trying to convince the schools that, the demographic, there's money in Africa. People think that Africa doesn't have any money. When in reality, I went to Australia 25 years ago as a student. So I don't think that we're short of money. I think that we're short of opportunities and choices to actually have another country for students to go and study.
Okay, so talking about opportunities still, previously when you've had conversations, you've said that there are certain courses that if you studied in Kenya, you might need to pivot for you to actually fit in New Zealand. Say, for example, you did journalism in Kenya and want an opportunity in New Zealand. How would that look like for you?
If you've got a degree, they consider someone who's actually got an undergraduate has got sufficient credibility to actually do a master's course. So the idea would be to actually do a master's course by research topic of your choice or your experience that would actually be marketable in New Zealand. Once you've done, for example, a master's degree by research, which is a 1-year degree, you get a 3-year postgraduate open work visa. So if you want to work in production, if you want to work in pure journalism, if you want, there's a smorgasbord of things that you could actually do that would be relevant and marketable in New Zealand.
Okay, so thank you for that. So talking about, there are certain people that makes things happen in Kenya, and we have a lot of hoops to jump through in education. Like there's a lot of people involved, a lot of stakeholders. Have you had an opportunity to interact with some of them and tell them, as much as you're talking to Kenyans themselves, they're the people that make some of these things happen.
Yeah.
Are you like lobbying with the government for them to open doors to New Zealand and make it a bit more accessible?
I actually had a meeting with PS Njogu today.
Okay.
It was quite productive. Again, going back to, we kind of need to start at a point where you know nothing about New Zealand. So education, information. And the people will come because Kenyans are very good like that. If they find that there's opportunities, they will come. Because I had a really tight schedule, I struggled to actually find time to meet with people. So I've met with a few people. I've met with the CEC or education in Nakuru. I met with a vice principal of KMTC, Machakos. And I think that's about it in terms of government. The meeting with PS Njogu this afternoon was to say, can we have political engagement? Kenyan government talks to New Zealand government. New Zealand doesn't have a high commission here. Kenya doesn't have a high commission in New Zealand. The Australia high commission is lumped with the New Zealand high commission in the Pacific. Now, fair, we don't have a lot of people, but it's an area of growth, and there's nothing wrong with government actually engaging, whether it is actually skilled labor, whether it's business opportunities, whether it's foreign trade, right? So there are opportunities there. I think that this tour kind of focused on people getting information on the ground, but there's definitely opportunities for us to actually engage government. It would be good to actually see the Minister of Foreign Affairs coming to New Zealand for a state visit, for example. Education would be the same. Chamber of Commerce would be the same. There's plenty of opportunities out there, so it's not just about students. Okay. I haven't engaged with them, but it's not to say that I wouldn't want to.
Oh, that would be nice. I really hope that if they do get to watch this, or if this video does get to them, they do find a way, because when a Kenyan leaves Kenya and they come back to tell us we have found greener pastures and it's there, I think that's the most patriotic thing that you can do. So thank you for being a patriot despite having been away for 25 years.
I am Kenyan. I even sometimes speak like a Kenyan.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that. I wanted to talk about, someone has texted you or written an email to Global Talent Pathways and said, I've heard what you've said and what you do, and I want you to guide me. How do you siphon out, this is just curiosity and this is actually someone that is interested in pursuing this further?
Okay, so one of the first things we do is we send a general email that tells people who we are and how we work and what courses we're actually working with, and the key important things. So one of the there's one of two reasons why Kenyans don't get visas. One of them is documents that are not genuine, and the second one is proof of funding. So for validation, we need to make sure that people have got access to funding, and if you don't, then hey, you can keep us in mind, and you can keep New Zealand in mind for when you get the funding. And the second one is New Zealand is very procedural. If you don't have documents, I met this prospective student who told me his passport, his birth certificate, and something else don't match. The name is different. I'm sorry, we wouldn't be able to apply for you unless all your documents actually aligned. And so whether you want to sign an affidavit to actually get that sorted out, we wouldn't be able to actually work with you unless we're sure that your documents are actually certified. We still have people who don't have either of those, and who, you know, when we send them a form, come through to us. But once we've spoken to them, we know either you put that in the pile where it's like, this is to be looked at in another 6 months, and just keep, you know, nurturing it until the people are ready to come to New Zealand. But genuinely, a lot of people who we've engaged with have been ready to just jump on it and go with it.
Okay, that's really nice, and that's really positive feedback. So how much money are we talking about for a start? How much do I need to prove that I have?
So proof of funding is compulsory, and maybe I should step back. So your school fees is paid to the education provider, so they have nothing to do with a visa. You've just found a place. Kenyatta University has got opportunities for people to go. You go to Kenyatta University and pay the fees. So, and the fees is anywhere between $20,000 to about $40,000, which is about 1.9 to about 3.8 Kenya shillings, million Kenya shillings. Depending on the courses that you're doing, as I said, majority of them are 1 or 2 year courses. The 2 year courses, you kind of multiply whatever the cost is for 1 year and then the next year. But the other courses, it's one-off, it's 1 year. It's paid in advance, and that means that your student can actually go and focus on study, and whatever money they get when they're doing their hours is just for them, for their upkeep. I know in Australia you can pay in 2 installments. It's more money, but it gives you that option. We don't have that option in New Zealand, unfortunately. The other thing is proof of funding. Proof of funding goes straight to the government. What you're doing is you're proving to the New Zealand government that you're not going to be a burden to the system. And by proving that you've got enough money to take care of yourself, that money then the government is able to issue you with a visa, right? The proof of funding is 2 million Kenya shillings in a bank account, active bank account, for 9 months. One of the things that I found really, really good about Kenyans is how clever and intelligent they are, and how they can pivot. You know, what if I have 5 bank accounts and they all come to that? What if I have this? Now, what people need to understand is New Zealand, indeed most first world countries, we have a very straightforward. People don't have side hustles. People don't have 5 income streams. They have an income stream, and that money goes straight to a bank account. So when you complicate it culturally for them, they don't understand, why do you need 5 bank accounts? It's the same way as a sponsor. We only ever work with first degree sponsors. So your grandmother, your mother, your brother, your sister, could be an aunt and an uncle. You have to prove that you're related. Reason being, we never borrow money from each other. I haven't borrowed money from anyone for 25 years. Not $5, not $2. We just, culturally, that does not happen. You get paid a certain amount of money and you live within your means, right? Or you get a credit card or get a loan, but you never ever have borrow from someone. And so the concept of someone sponsoring you that is unrelated to you is so foreign to the New Zealand market. It's foreign to the Australian government. So this idea of sponsorship is not to make life difficult. It's actually just to say the way they live their life is a little bit different from the way we live our life, right? Granted, I don't know many New Zealanders who've got 2 million Kenya shillings in their bank account. We don't need it. You live enough, you have enough. And so people are not trying to accumulate wealth per se. They live with whatever they need. And the reason for that is it's a relatively, safe country. So things will always be the way they've always been. Okay. And so if I want to travel overseas, then I save some money and I go. And that's finished. I don't keep money in the bank account.
Well, that's That's really interesting because as a Kenyan, I cannot wrap my head around the fact that I can't survive with one job. That's a really interesting thing to note culture-wise. So you've still not gotten to the part where you've only told us about the documentation. So where do we go from there? We've applied. I have proved that I actually have what it takes to work with you.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there?
So then we pick a course. We determine what a student is interested in. One of the interesting things has been meeting people who say, I'll do nursing because it's very lucrative. And then I ask them, but what do you want to do? Oh, no, I'm only going to do nursing because that's the one that's going to make me money. Again, different worldview. In New Zealand, you don't get penalized for doing something that you enjoy doing. Now, I might not have the course, but it's not to say that if someone wants to be a plumber, that opportunity is going to be taken away from them because nursing is the most lucrative. There are many ways to get there, right? Not everybody needs to be a nurse, and some people just should not be nurses. Someone wants to be a teacher, that opportunity is available for them. So it's actually finding out what people are passionate about, because you're going to be so far away from home. If you're doing something you don't enjoy, life can be quite miserable. I do all the applications for every single student that I work with. I work with the schools because Africa is a fairly new market. I have key people that I work with who vet all the documentations that I'm putting in front of them. And so I do the applications. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks for an offer of place to be issued. If there's any issues, sometimes it's very quick, sometimes it's not very quick. If we do a good job, we should be able to get a reply within 10 working days, which is 2 weeks. And then the school then offers a conditional offer, which is a requirement for you to go and pay the school fees. You pay the school fees. That is the first step to actually starting to do the visa application. The visa application requires for you to have paid school fees. It is a show of commitment that you're actually really committed to come to New Zealand to study. And then we start the visa process from there after you've paid the school fees. The visa requirements are quite stringent, straightforward, but quite stringent. It takes us about up to 6 weeks to actually prepare your visa documentation. Why? Because we want to make sure that it's actually successful. We're teasing out every reason why you shouldn't get the visa. Kenya's got a 52% approval rating. 48% is because we don't do proper documentation and we don't do proper vetting. So that's why it takes 6 weeks.
Okay.
The visa process itself takes anywhere from 8 weeks to about 12 weeks. Sometimes it can take as long as 16 weeks. And again, it comes down to documentation. Can they verify that you're a bona fide student? Can they verify that you've got connections to your home country? What are your plans after you finish doing this? So it's kind of trying to figure out, are you a genuine student or not? Yeah. And then I'll meet you at the airport when you get the visa and you're coming to study.
Okay, so talking about a genuine student, previously you've said it's easier to get into a country or even a school if an agent is doing an application for you.
In New Zealand, yes.
So tell us why that is so, and most specifically, tell us why someone should trust Global Talent Pathways as an agency if they want to study in New Zealand.
Okay, so New Zealand has only got 5 million people, which means that we don't have enough people to do work, which is a strange problem for a Kenyan. We have more work than we have people. Universities don't have enough people to meet every single thing that they want to do, so they outsource. So they trust agents to actually do the marketing for them, and you have to go through a process. You have to do some learning. You have to be certified. You have to be a registered business. You have to be working with Education New Zealand to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements. So because it's a high transparency country, they have no reason to believe you're going to do anything dodgy. That's the first thing, because there's no reason for that to happen. New Zealand as a country has only got 10,000 people in its prisons. And so the idea of people doing dodgy stuff is new. We are doing it. We're the ones who are bringing the dodginess into the country, but generally as a country, they don't have that. And so once they've trusted an agent or they've trusted me, then they know that I'll work with students. And because I'm filling a gap, because the university is not able to actually get agents to do that, or the education providers don't have enough people to do that, they can trust me to actually do that for them. Why Global Talent Pathways? We don't charge any fees. There is 3 ways that you're going to get charged. It's either you're paying the school fees straight to the school, you're paying for a licensed immigration advisor, which we strongly recommend for you to do, and you're paying for your visa. Those are the only 3 ways that a student is actually going to be required to pay. None of that comes to me. The only other thing that where there'd be interaction with money would be once students have actually decided that they're coming and we're helping them find somewhere to stay. And again, it would be for them to actually work out where they want to stay, which we help with. And then we organize for them to make payments to the accommodations that they're going to be having.
Okay.
That's about it.
I really love like how wholesome this is, and how you're taking someone from a point of no knowledge to a point where they can actually come and settle in New Zealand, which is really, really nice. So, and then, so as the opportunities go, I want us to talk about the courses that are available right now, because you said there are 8 universities, and then there are, you said PTEs.
PTEs.
Yeah. So talk about the courses available and how you would advise a Kenyan to go around that issue of courses.
Okay. So we're a relatively small agency, so we're not open for every single business.
Sure.
We are open to courses that offer opportunities for people to stay. So the courses that I'm currently promoting are health and well-being, which is courses that then when you're finished, you could work as a healthcare assistant, you could work in social work, you could work in alcohol and drug abuse, you could work in diversional therapy, you could work in aged care. The other one is early childhood. Again, straightforward, it's an area of need. There is hospitality, in particular cookery, again, area of need. Then I've got engineering and construction. The engineering and construction courses are diplomas, and quantity surveying, and that's 2-year courses in a polytechnic. Those ones cost a bit more money because it's a 2-year course. And then the other, ICT is another one. I've actually got a 2-year degree program that does trimesters as opposed to semesters, so that you finish it quicker. It's an ICT degree. And then I've got master's programs. A lot of Kenyans are so educated and not enough opportunities. There's not many New Zealanders who are highly educated. And so they're opening a market up where educated people who've got qualifications can come and do their masters. I've got about 4 master's courses that range from 1 year to actually 2 years. And they are in global business. There is one in management, healthcare, business informatics, and a general management master's. All really, really good for people who've actually got base degrees, of which a lot of Kenyans have got. And then from that, they can come to New Zealand with their family if they have a spouse, and they can bring their dependent children with them from the ages of 5 to 18 who come and study as domestic students. We don't pay for school fees. Everything is actually catered for by the school, by the government. So if you have a degree and you want to come to New Zealand as a master's student, the benefits are tremendous. The other thing is that you end up with a 3-year open work visa when you do your master's, and you have 3 years to look for a job. While you are doing your master's, you are working. So ideally, when you finish your student visa, you'd go on a work visa and then start a pathway to actually permanent residence and citizenship. And that's the way New Zealand is. There's no mucking around. It's a pathway where you start with a student visa, you go on a work visa, you go on a permanent resident visa, and you become a citizen.
I like the fact that the pathway to residency is quite cut out and straightforward. It doesn't have like any hoops you have to jump through. Something to note and something interesting is, does someone have to declare that I don't want to leave New Zealand when I finish my education during the application?
No, you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to.
It's implied.
The pathway is there. Obviously, they don't want people who are running from their country to come to New Zealand. You're coming, your intention is to come and study, and when we write statement of purpose, we don't necessarily say I'm coming to New Zealand and I have no intention of going back home, but the pathways are cut out that's the way it's supposed to be. So you don't need to say that, I'm coming to New Zealand to live. You're coming to study.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there instances where, someone has come and they have to go back? Like, does it have to be that straightforward? Someone can actually finish their education and decide, maybe I don't want to stay here and I want to come back?
Yeah, of course. Why not? If you want to come back. I don't know that there's many people who go to first world countries where systems work who are like, actually I do, sorry. I have at least 5 friends who have all gone overseas and come back home and have done very well. I just happen not to be one of them.
But you see, the fact that, you're coming back with a business idea and you're coming back with opportunities means somehow you still have Kenya at heart.
Oh, no, I have every intention of coming back more and more, at least 2 or 3 times a year, so that I can enjoy Kenya as well as do the work. I'm a Kenyan at heart. I don't know that that was ever going to change. I think because I was busy raising a child and working, those opportunities were not there, whereas now I have opportunities to actually interact with Kenya. And business is an excellent way of being able to actually come back again and again.
Okay. So when you're talking about the proof of funding, you said that someone needs at least 2 million shillings for them to actually be able to be accepted and for you to actually take the application seriously. Let's talk about the numbers in terms of, yes, you have 2 million, but how does it look? How much money do I need to have, like in total, in terms of my air ticket, my visa application, school fees, like roughly how much am I looking at if I want to say start my application in April?
I'd say that the proof of funding is not money that you're going to use. No, all you're doing is you're proving that you'd be able to take care of yourself when you arrive in New Zealand. So there are people who, once the visa has been approved, the money is taken away from, because a lot of Kenyans do that, by the way. You need about 150,000 Kenya shillings a month for the first 2 months while you're going to look for a job. So out of that 2,300,000 roughly is what you'll need to get to New Zealand and actually settle in. School fees, air tickets, I think air tickets are around 200,000. The New Zealand government has got a very specific number of what your living expenses are, and it's $1,667, which works out to be about 150,000 Kenya shillings a month. So
this amount is capped, like that is how much you should spend?
No, it's a rough figure. Someone says in Nairobi you need 50,000 per month to survive. Do you know, that kind of thing? So some people might not need 50,000. Some people will, because lifestyle's different. Some people are operating on 10K. Other people are operating on millions, right? So, but they've said this is the basis where we think everybody should be.
Fit.
Yeah. And if you're coming to New Zealand, this is where you should actually be budgeting at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone has 1.9 million
Yeah.
to 3.8 for education, and then they do a visa, so I need at least 5 million to have a nice head start comfortably without struggling.
Yeah, I'd say 4.5, yeah.
4.5 million.
Of which when you pay the school fees and then you pay living expenses for a couple of months, you'll probably get another 1.5 million back.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're very Kenyan. Talking about money makes people uncomfortable.
I feel very uncomfortable talking about money.
No, but it's very, we like to put it out there so that someone can know. The opportunities are good and it's nice, but someone needs to know, what am I getting into? We've had situations previously where someone can only fund half of the expenses that are required. You can only afford school fees, and then after you've paid your school fees, you realize, I cannot afford my visa, and I cannot even afford to stay in New Zealand. So you see, we have a disconnect there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, one of the things that is interesting about New Zealand, and I think it's most first world countries, it happened to me 25 years ago, is we used to still do, get 20 hours working if you're an undergrad. 20 hours gives you enough money to pay rent, transport, and food. and if you manage your money well, you'll have a bit of change from that. So in terms of the point is to get you to New Zealand. When you're in New Zealand, the jobs are there, right? It's not, you can get a job as soon as you land. There'll be jobs. Unskilled labor there's a lot of work. We have 4% unemployment rate. We have 4% unemployment rate, and the reasons why people are not in jobs is for social political reasons. It's not economic at all. Like, people choose not to go to a job as opposed to there are no jobs. Yeah. So how do you get there? Because when you get there, the opportunities are there, and you'll be able to actually take care of yourself.
Okay, that's really nice. So through this interview, we have come to the conclusion that New Zealand is a very interesting country, and it is new to Kenya. There are still very few students who are discovering it. But now that we have someone who is an expert in that field and very passionate about education and the opportunities that are available, it's definitely a really interesting place to start checking out. There is information on their website, Global Talent Pathways. She's available on call and on social media, and you can talk to her about all your concerns. So as we come to the end of this and as we come to the conclusion, I would like her to give us a call to action. Tell us, she said she's coming back in August. So what would you like Kenyans to prepare for, even as we anticipate you coming back?
Curious, open mind. Curiosity is probably the key driver for education anyway. So look, if you don't have funding, which is a majority of people who I talk to say that's a lot of money, hopefully we can find ways to keep your hope alive. When we come back, hopefully if we have government engagement, there'll be pathways, whether it's Equity Bank being able to have loans that people can have, or other ways to fund education. But honestly, open mind, curious mind, open heart, open mind.
Okay. I've just recalled something before we conclude. I'd asked about someone has come to you and they want a course that is not being offered by the universities that you're advocating for. Where do you direct them? Because you can't tell them, I don't do that.
I'll still give them information.
Okay.
What I'll do is, I'm working with people. Okay, so those kind of people would either not. I'm working with courses where it is affordable. Some of the other courses are not affordable, right? So if you have plenty of money, then it's easy because I can even direct you to a university and get someone to help you with that. But if it's not a course that is going to give you opportunities to stay, pathways for you to stay, that'll be where I'd start. Why are you choosing that? Because you can pay all this money, and actually when you're finished, you have to go back to your country, right? So it is actually a consultation with a person, and then say, this is possible, these are the universities or institutions that provide this, have a look, and if you need me to help you with the process, then I can do that.
Okay. So just a question about transfer of credits, and do the courses need to align in terms of undergraduate, graduate, and masters? How do I do it? Because I think we've talked with you before, and I told you I pursued information sciences and I want a pathway to New Zealand, but we are looking at what I have done and the skills that are lacking in New Zealand, and we are really struggling with where to place me. How does that work?
I'm not sure, but if there's a very big disconnect. If you did information science and you're coming to do nursing, unless it's a passion, if you're coming purely so that you can get a pathway to be in New Zealand, it can be done, but that's not setting you up for success.
Okay.
Yeah, setting you up for success is finding something that you want to do and finding a way for us to get you to New Zealand doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
or using your whatever your skills are with you currently are to actually get you there.
Okay, that's really interesting, because the courses that you're talking about, someone could have pursued something entirely different at undergraduate. So I feel like you have a very already clear-cut path, and someone has to like fit in that box.
Yes.
What happens when they don't? As an agency, how do you help?
Then we work with them to find out. But if you've done an undergrad, I would almost always say you need to come and do a master's, because it's the straightest path forward.
So whatever path you choose for masters still sets you on a path to residency.
100%.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so if you did we've done a bachelor's in information science, you'd come to New Zealand and do a master's and find a research topic that actually lies in with whatever you're doing, and then find a job that aligns with that. Once you become a permanent resident, if you want to go back and do poetry, fine.
Interesting. Thank you for clearing that up. So you've said age is not a factor when it comes to these applications. New Zealand is open to all demographics.
So we are big on human rights. However, I don't think it's written, but 55 is usually an age that people find quite difficult to get visas. Reason being, you're so close to retirement. We retire at 65. And so the return on investment for New Zealand, for someone who's coming as a 55-year-old who would then retire less than 10 years after arriving, is possibly not deemed as a benefit for them. But age under 55 is not an issue.
Okay, so thank you very much. Today we've had the CEO and Chief Consultant of Global Talent Pathways. Her name is Janet Kamau. You can find her on all her social media platforms. You can engage with the website, Global Talent Pathways. She is living in Kenya, but she will be back. Let's continue this conversation going on all our social media platforms. The Kenya Diaspora Media, tag the Kenya Diaspora Spotlight to continue getting some of these stories and insightful conversations. If you have anyone, or if you know anyone who's doing work that is impactful in the community, work that is helping Kenyans who are abroad and those who are back in Kenya, and opportunities that could help them make more money and get more skills, get in touch with us through our social media platforms, and let's tell these stories. Thank you very much, Janet, and I look forward to seeing you again in September. Kaherini.
Thanks.
See you next time.
See ya.